Video 21, Part 19A of 25, Importance of the Plan Risk Management Process. The purpose of this video is to present the importance of the plan risk management process and the problems that arise when it is conducted improperly. The plan risk management process is the first process within the project risk management knowledge area and is related to the planning process group. Like, subscribe to my channel, and share with others. Thank you. How important is the plan risk management process in the PMBOK planning process group? The plan risk management process is critically important and foundational within the PMBOK planning process group. It is not just another box to check. It is the process that creates the rulebook for how all risk-related activities will be conducted for the entire project. Here's a detailed breakdown of its importance. 1. It is a foundational or meta process. The plan risk management process is unique because it doesn't plan the project's work directly. Instead, it plans how the project will plan for risk. Using an analogy, before a sports game, the teams don't just start playing. They agree on the rules, what constitutes a foul, how scoring works, the duration of the game, etc. The plan risk management process is the equivalent of establishing these rules for risk. It produces the risk management plan, which is a component of the overall project management plan. 2. It provides the framework for all subsequent risk activities. The output of this process, which is the risk management plan, is a mandatory input for every other risk management process, as follows. First, identify risks. Second, perform qualitative risk analysis. Third, perform quantitative risk analysis. Fourth, plan risk responses. Fifth, implement risk responses. Sixth, monitor risks. Without the framework established in plan risk management, these subsequent processes would be ad hoc, inconsistent, and lack clear direction. The plan answers crucial questions like: first, what are our risk thresholds? In other words, how much risk is the organization willing to tolerate? Second, what are the roles and responsibilities for risk management? In other words, who does what? Third, how will we categorize risks? In other words, making use of a risk breakdown structure, or RBS. Fourth, what are our definitions of probability and impact? In other words, using a scoring system. Fifth, what are the budgeting and scheduling requirements for risk activities? Sixth, how will we report on risks? In other words, making use of risk reporting formats and frequency. 3. It ensures a proactive, not reactive, stance. By dedicating a formal process to planning for risk at the very beginning of the project, the PMBOK enforces a proactive culture. The team is forced to think about what could go wrong and what could go right about opportunities before issues arise. This shifts the project mindset from firefighting to fire prevention. 4. It promotes consensus and buy-in. The process of developing the risk management plan typically involves key stakeholders, such as sponsors, team members, and clients. This collaboration ensures that: first, everyone agrees on the level of risk the project can accept. Second, roles and responsibilities are clear and agreed upon. Third, there is a shared understanding of the importance of risk management, which increases the likelihood that people will actively participate in the subsequent risk processes. 5. It justifies the investment in risk management. Risk management takes time and resources. The plan risk management process formally documents the budget for risk management and the schedule for risk activities. This justifies the investment to stakeholders and sponsors by showing that these activities are a planned, essential part of project delivery, not an optional overhead. What are the problems if the plan risk management process is not performed in the PMBOK planning process group as required? When the plan risk management process is skipped or performed poorly, it doesn't just create a gap in documentation, it fundamentally undermines the project's resilience and sets the stage for potential failure. The problems cascade throughout the project lifecycle and can be categorized as follows. 1. Chaos in risk identification and analysis. Without a predefined rulebook, the subsequent risk processes become ad hoc and inconsistent, as follows. First, there are inconsistencies in identification. There's no agreed upon method, like using a risk breakdown structure, to ensure all areas of the project are thoroughly examined. Risks are identified haphazardly, often based on who shouts the loudest, leading to significant gaps. Second, there is no standard for assessment. There are no agreed upon definitions for probability and impact. What one person considers a high impact, another might see as medium. This makes it impossible to compare risks objectively and prioritize them effectively. Is a 2-week delay a 3 or a 5 on the impact scale? No one knows. Third, there is wasted effort. The team spends time arguing about how to analyze risks instead of actually analyzing them. Meetings become unproductive without a common framework. 2. Ineffective or non-existent risk responses. This is where the real damage occurs. Without a plan, risk response planning is reactive and weak, as follows. First, there are no proactive strategies. The team fails to develop proactive strategies such mitigation, reducing probability, transference, like insurance, or avoidance, through changes in the plan. Instead, it resorts to the least effective strategy, which is the acceptance or doing nothing until the problem happens, or even crisis management based on panic. Second, there is no allocation of resources. The risk management plan typically includes a risk budget or contingency reserve. Without it, there are no formally allocated funds or time to implement responses. When a risk occurs, the project manager must beg for additional resources, causing delays and damaging credibility. Third, there is a lack of clarity in assigning responsibilities. Even if a good response is identified, no one is formally assigned to own it. The response languishes without action until the risk triggers, at which point it's too late. 3. Poor communication and stakeholder misalignment. The risk management plan is a communication tool. Without it, misalignment is inevitable, as follows. First, there are different levels of risk tolerance. The project sponsor might have a high tolerance for cost overruns but a very low tolerance for schedule delays. The team, unaware of this, might prioritize the wrong risks, leading to stakeholder conflict. Second, there are unmanaged expectations. Stakeholders are not aligned on what the big risks are or how they will be handled. When a major issue arises, they are surprised and may lose confidence in the project leadership. Third, there is a lack of transparency. Risk reporting becomes inconsistent. There is no standard format or frequency for reporting risks to stakeholders, leading to information vacuums and rumors. 4. Reactive crisis management and firefighting. This is the ultimate consequence of all the preceding problems. The project team is no longer managing the project. They are being managed by the latest crisis, as follows. First, increased costs. Reacting to a problem is almost always more expensive than preventing it. This leads to cost overruns from expedited shipping, overtime pay, and rework. Second, schedule delays. Unforeseen and unplanned for risks cause significant disruptions, as the team must stop planned work to address the emergency. Third, compromised quality. Under pressure to just get it fixed, teams often take shortcuts, leading to technical debt and quality issues down the line. Fourth, low team morale. Constant firefighting is exhausting and demoralizing. The team feels out of control and is constantly stressed, leading to burnout and higher turnover. 5. Inability to monitor and control risks effectively. The monitoring and controlling phase lacks the baseline to measure against, as follows. First, absence of a tracking mechanism. How do you track the status of a risk response if you never formally defined what it was or who was responsible? The monitor risks process has nothing to monitor. Second, lack of learning. Without a formal process, there are no records of what risks were identified, what responses were attempted, and what the outcomes were. The project fails to create organizational process assets for future projects, dooming them to repeat the same mistakes. In conclusion, in the PMBOK's planning process group, plan risk management is not merely important, it is a critical, enabling process that makes all other risk management activities possible, consistent, and effective. It transforms risk management from an informal, reactive activity into a structured, proactive discipline that is integral to the project's success. Skipping or rushing this process undermines the entire risk management knowledge area and leaves the project vulnerable to unforeseen threats and missed opportunities. Neglecting the plan risk management process transforms risk management from a proactive, strategic discipline into a reactive, tactical firefight. It erodes the project's foundation, leading to: first, uninformed decisions. Second, budget and schedule blowouts. Third, strained stakeholder relationships. Fourth, a demoralized team. Fifth, a higher likelihood of project failure. As a final message, failing to plan for risk is, in itself, a monumental risk to the project. This video is finished, but we will have in the next videos. 1. Creation of WBS for different projects using WBS Schedule Pro. 2. Examples of project plans using MS Project. And many more videos. Don't forget to give a thumbs up if you like this video and want us to continue with new topics. Subscribe to the channel. All content is free. You can also comment suggesting topics you would like to see on this channel. Thank you.